Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and the story mode fragment farming just changed for the month. It's a day early. I know it's Halloween, but we are now in the November list for it. So these are 30 days now that you have to take advantage of these new characters that are featured for each of the 31 different missions. And so, as always, we have already curated the list of characters that are listed right here, how many times they're listed, what stages they're listed on, and then the rest of the video is going to be discussing the story mode fragment farming at large, as well as ideal teams for you to auto farm and specific characters that you may want to focus on building up, transcending, tier 3ing, specifically to get you more fragments this month. And again, refer to any of the previous videos where I've done fragment chest openings for you to see exactly why you absolutely want to be paying very close attention to this. You want to be upgrading characters for story mode fragment farming, and you want to be doing so at the change of the month so that you can reap those benefits for as long as possible. Like, for example, you tier 3 ancient one tomorrow, you can get the extra 25% chance to get fragments on 2-1 and 7-1 for the next 29 days versus waiting 2 weeks and not getting nearly as much benefit from it. So the overview generally for this month, as we just sort of leisurely scroll through the list, and you're just paying attention to the November rankings, you're not paying attention to the other months there, but we can do this. We can highlight it just like that. It just looks a little bit empty, but yeah, if we look at November, the general consensus that I've seen is a lot of characters are chosen this month. You can see there not a lot of NA, not a lot of gray, which means that it's going to require more of your roster. So that's the first big thing. Usually get more NAs when we get down towards the end. The second big thing, not a lot of characters getting featured more than twice. And again, that makes sense. If a lot of characters are being featured, there are fewer options for characters to be repeated. So there's actually only 2 characters that get repeated more than twice. So 3 times. No one gets repeated 4 times. Vision gets repeated 3 times on 2-1, 2-3, and 9-2. And then Titania gets repeated 3 times on 3-3, 5-1, and 13-2. And I want to particularly point out Vision here because if you don't have him and you choose not to build him this month, you can basically kiss the second fragment goodbye in the Dimensional Clash because he's available for 2. He's needed for 2-1 right there with Clea and Ancient One, and then he's needed again 2 stages later with Betsy and Wave. So you're kind of screwed on Fragment 2 if you don't have, actually it's Fragment 2 and Fragment, so it's actually not Fragment 2 only. You're sort of half screwed on 2 and half screwed on 3, and those are pretty valuable fragments. You can see there, they're not my lowest count, but there are some of my lowest counts, 1 and 5 being the easiest to skip. Another thing to note for this month, which is very unusual, is a native tier 3 was added to the pool and then used immediately, and that of course is Gore. We haven't seen this in a long time. Usually it takes several months of not being chosen before a native tier 3 gets added in. You can see here when we scroll down to Mephisto, well, Mephisto's had his pattern sort of change, but anyways, you kind of get what I'm saying. But for Gore to suddenly appear is brutal. However, you don't have to worry about that because he's on 1-2. And we've covered this in previous videos with characters like, I think it's Amadeus Cho that was on 1-1 and 1-3. But any of the characters that are on 1-1, 1-2, or 1-3, and subsequently any of the characters that are on 4-1, 4-2, or 5-1, you can consider, I'm not saying you should, but you can consider skipping one of them. Because unlike the other stages, which only have 2 fragment drops per day, so a maximum of 4 if you get the double bonus, these ones have 6 or 3, right? So they have 3 chances, maximum of 6 drops. So you could skip building up Gore on 1-2, and you could still farm just as many fragments for the first piece as you do for the other 8 pieces 2 through 9. So just keep that in mind when we mention anything from 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, and then 4-1, 4-2, 5-1. So those are also important things to notice. Another thing that I noticed for this month specifically is there are a bunch of expensive characters, native tier 2s, native tier 3s, who are featured twice. So we'll go through the list here, starting off with Dormammu. He's featured twice here on 2-2 and 12-2, which is kind of a bummer. Black Dwarf is also featured twice on 3-2 and 3-3, and this is the one I believe that, no, actually, yeah, 3-2 and 3-3. If you don't get Black Dwarf, you're kind of screwed out of the 4th fragment this month because he's available. He's needed for both 3-2 and 3-3. You can see there in the middle. And then Your Eyes Did Not Deceive You, Titania, and Namor appeared, but he's still there in the middle. I don't know if that was an oversight, but unfortunately, yeah. So Black Dwarf is the gatekeeper for this month's 4th fragment. So again, you can look at your fragments, or look at the total fragments that you have if you've been banking them, and see, you know, I need a lot of 4th fragments. You can see it's one of my lowest. It's in the low 80s. And so because of that, if I didn't have Black Dwarf, I would have to prioritize him ASAP, like no question about it. After Black Dwarf and Dormammu, you also see Mephisto. We already showed him on screen, but Mephisto is also featured twice this month. Pretty unusual for a native tier 3 to be featured that much, but it is what it is. Also Invisible Woman, not a native tier 3 or native tier 2, but she is a premium character, so that does kind of suck. And then we already scrolled over her, but also Echo, who is a premium character who is featured, not a deluxe pack like Invisible Woman, but she's also a premium character that is featured twice. So yeah, with that being said, and with the sort of breakdown here, not one of the best months for story mode fragment farming in my opinion. Not one of the worst, but definitely I would say on the worst side. It's nice to see Namor and Black Panther featured at least once, but other than that, really not too much nice stuff. I guess Vision and Titania being the ones that are picked the most is kind of good because they're both highly accessible. But Vision has definitely seen more use in the past. Don't get him confused with Gore. Vision doesn't have that much value these days. However, Titania is very meta. So if you hadn't already jumped on the Titania train, I highly, highly recommend it. She is fantastic. Now, as far as the ideal team for auto playing this month, because there's so many characters chosen, this month is pretty sketchy. We actually have 6 different stages that are, in my opinion, problematic. And what I mean by problematic is you may have a problem auto playing them given the character at hand who's going to be the leader. So for this first one here on 6-2, Destroyer. Now, Destroyer's not a villain, so he's not going to die to the Reflect on this stage, but he's not that strong offensively, and he's not that durable defensively. So I don't know if my Destroyer can autoplay 6-2. He might be able to. I'm going to have to test it. But this stage right here, if he can autoplay it or not, is going to be a key difference maker in whether your team is going to look like this one up here, or it's going to look like a different team. And I'll talk about both teams and why they make sense. But yeah, just keep that in mind. If your Destroyer is very strong, you don't have to use this team. But there is one other thing that you have to consider in order to construct the best team, the most ideal team. The next problematic stage is 8-2 because of all 3 of the characters. Morbius is bad, Caecilius is terrible, and Wave is pretty good. Bonus points if you have her built for ABX with a Rage. She'll just cut through the stage. But yeah, this is a tough one. I think Morbius can auto play and auto clear it because he has so much healing, but I'm going to have to test it and see because he has no uniform and yada, yada, yada. This one, I actually am not factoring in terms of my ideal team. If Morbius can't clear it, it honestly sets up a situation where you need to use multiple teams if you want to fully autoplay, or you need to switch to Wave at the beginning. So kind of a bummer here on 8-2, but hopefully it won't be too bad. Hopefully Morbius can do it. The next problematic stage is 9-1 because it's Scourge lead, and I'm pretty sure he can't clear this by himself. So that's why here, as you can see, Scourge is on the right side of this ideal team that I've set up here with Jean Grey in the middle. So this way, having Destroyer on one side and Scourge on the other means they're never going to be lead. So I don't have to worry about Destroyer for 6-2, and I don't have to worry about Scourge for 9-1. However, there are more problematic stages. Here we go. So right away, right off the bat on 11-2, you have Gwenpool. So this is a big sucker moment because if you didn't get her old uniform, it was paywall. It was the first, I believe it was the first paywall uniform they introduced with the tokens, with the paid tokens. If you didn't have that uniform, that's her only uniform where she does elemental damage. So you're probably wondering, like, why is Gwenpool here? Yeah. So for those of you that do have Gwenpool's uniform, okay, this gets a little bit complicated, but if you do have Gwenpool's uniform and you can swap her over to it, then it does open up some other options for you to use different teams. Okay, so in my case, I can switch over to her uniform and I can use her. Therefore, I don't need to have her anywhere, and I don't need to pay it. Like, this stage is no longer a problem. However, if you don't have Gwenpool's old uniform, then you have to construct an alternate team where you're using Human Torch lead, or you switch to Human Torch at the beginning, whatever you prefer. So I'm going to start constructing this alternate team here to show you guys what you would do if you don't have Gwenpool's uniform. But if you do have Gwenpool's uniform, I think this is the ideal team for farming. However, there are even more problems. Next problem up here is the very next stage. They put Loki in as the first character, aka the leadership. This is not going to work. This is not going to fly. Loki doesn't have any elemental damage anymore. It's only on his very old, very crusty uniforms. I'm talking Lady Loki and the OG uniform. These are the only, and I believe one of these skills maybe has elemental damage, but it's slim. So, and this crusty thing. So yeah, your choices here are you can either have Jean Grey or Shadow Shell lead. You don't have to use Jean Grey. I'm just using Jean Grey, but it can be Jean Grey or Shadow Shell lead. Or if you're using the alternative team because you don't have Gwenpool's uniform, then here is where you would have to put Loki in one position or another. Okay, but if you're doing that, then you have to build up your destroyer and make sure that he can clear 6-2. Or alternatively, you build up your Scourge, yikes, and you make sure that he can autoplay clear 9-1. But you're basically forced into a corner here if you don't have Gwenpool's uniform, because you don't really have many other options other than not autoplaying and switching yourself, which you can always do, but it's just kind of annoying. And then there's another problem on 13. This is the last problem here. A lot of problems this month for these teams here. 13-2. I'm not 100% sure if this is going to be a problem, but it might be. Thankfully, Scourge is not on the left, but if Red Skull cannot clear that, then that could be a problem. But yeah, as it stands now, you basically have these two teams here. You can swap Scourge with Destroyer's Place, but these are the two teams that I consider to be the most ideal for auto-playing if you have all or most of the characters for this month. If you have less than most, then you can construct an ideal team where you just place a really fast clear in the middle. And in that case, Human Torch works really well because he clears stages super fast. So I like this ideal team for those reasons. This is the ideal team, in my opinion, if you don't have Gwenpool's holiday uniform, because it covers that stage and doesn't require you to open your phone and switch to her. If you already have her uniform and you don't need that, then you can take advantage of this team and you don't have to build up your Destroyer or Scourge at all, which I also really like. Just have to keep track of Morbius on 8-2, I believe, and then keep track of Red Skull on 12 or 13-2. So yeah, I'll update things when I do those two tests to see if those characters can clear those stages. But yeah, that's it for story mode this month. I have a ton of boxes to open. I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to do that because it's going to take a long time. But yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.